What does it mean to be a man today? Is masculinity outdated in today's society? Now, I did a video on this, but I focused purely on hair loss and hair loss solutions, one of which I wear. I wear a hair system and how that relates to masculinity in today's day and age. But today we're going to be looking at other facets of masculinity and how they're evolving, how they've changed, and how they'll look in the future. Now, before I start with this video, if you are suffering from hair loss and you feel like you're losing a sense of yourself and your masculinity, there are solutions. Hair systems are available. You can get a 15% discount from levividhair.com. They're sponsoring this video, so do check them out. All the information is in the description box below. But to get an idea of where masculinity is today, let's go back in time to get an idea of how it started and how we got to this point. Now, for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the man has been expected to provide financially for the family. The man is the one who would go out to work, he'd earn a living, he'd work long, hard hours, and he was expected to act as a protector for his family, which back in those days was usually a wife and multiple children. And this is pretty consistent across the board for most cultures over the last several thousand years of human civilization. However, something very notable happened in the 20th century, and that's that social dynamics, gender dynamics, demographics really started shifting, they started changing, and they started evolving. And as a result, our ideas of masculinity and femininity really changed. We had more women in the workplace. We had more workers' rights. Women were having less children because they were working all the time. The standards of living massively improved, and our expectations for what it meant to be a man or to be a woman sort of fundamental shift. And for me personally, I think that's a good thing. I think we've been stuck in the past for way too long with some really outdated traditional values which weren't able to bring us the current living standards that we have today, especially in the West. Of course, in the late 20th and early 21st century as well, we were able to better recognize the importance of mental health topics and actually recognizing that maybe, that stiff upper lip approach to life doesn't really work that well, especially if you're struggling internally. And people felt more able to ask for help. Of course, we're not perfect and we've got a long way to go with that. We're taking steps in the right direction. Now, looking at current societal expectations and pressures for men and masculinity, as I mentioned earlier, it has changed a lot. And here's my opinion of what masculinity looks like now. Now, of course, there is still a pressure for men to succeed professionally, financially. However, a lot of other dynamics have changed. We're expected to balance our professional and social life, but also if we've got children or a wife or a partner, we're expected to actually spend more time with the most important people in our lives. So I read a study not too long ago saying that actually males now spend way more time bringing their kids up than previous generations. So way more time than baby boomers, for instance, and generations before that. Why is that? It might just be because now, due to financial pressures, especially in the US and the UK, usually both parents have to work. They have to split their time looking after the kids. Childcare is also expensive. So men generally take a much more hands-on role in the family, and that is deemed to be now a much more masculine trait. And actually, men who don't really see their kids at all, that's actually deemed to be quite unmasculine. That's deemed to be a bit of a dereliction of your duty in your kids' upbringing. Another signal of masculinity in modern society is actually learning to be more open about your emotions, learning to be more open about how you're feeling. That takes a lot of strength. And even though previously, 30, 40, 50 years ago, that could be a sign of weakness, it's actually an incredible sign of strength because it can open a door to personal and professional development and improvement. If you can acknowledge your faults or acknowledge where you're struggling, that level of awareness and self-reflection can actually help you improve as a person and as a man moving forward. And lastly, social media, for all of its flaws, what you'll generally find now, you're on social media or you're watching TV programs, and men are held a bit more accountable if they're behaving in a toxic way, which would have been deemed acceptable 40 or 50 or even 30 years ago. Men are being held accountable. I was watching a program last night. Me and my wife have been watching it for weeks. It's called Married at First Sight UK. They've got it in Australia, America, I think has got one, New Zealand. But the UK one, they actually have therapists and coaches who hold both the husband and the wife accountable if they're exhibiting toxic, unhealthy and unhelpful behaviors. And I think that can actually only be a good thing because it's actually teaching us to become better people. So let's briefly break down a few misconceptions of masculinity here. So the first is if you speak out, if you're struggling and you speak out, you're perceived to be weak. We know that's not true. The data is boring this out now. We know that's not true. And the second piece here, the second misconception, and this is so important, is you've got toxic masculinity versus positive masculinity. Now, what's toxic masculinity? Toxic masculinity, traits like aggression, dominance, ego-driven, egotistical, and quite frankly, abusive to the other gender. That is toxic masculinity. Now, positive masculinity, and this is what I want you guys to aim for because this is going to get you places in life, is courage, protectiveness, resilience, and individuality. Be yourself, be who you are. Don't be who someone tells you you should be. Be strong enough to say, this is me, this is who I am, and this is how I'm going to live my life because this is what makes me happy. This is what makes me feel fulfilled. Now, I'm going to share a few tips for embracing modern masculinity. Tips that I've learned from years of basically personal development in my own life because I needed to change when I was younger. So number one, and this is so important, encourage self-reflection. Be accountable. Start journaling. You don't have to do it every day. You could even just do it once a week for 10 minutes. Just journal your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences. Has someone cheesed you off at work? Write it down. Write down how you felt about it. There was a study done about 10 years ago where basically these medical students, they journaled every day for 3 months and they actually found just their experiences at work, how they were feeling each day, and they generally found a series of biomarkers in their health improved drastically. It can also come in the form of going to therapy, going to see a therapist, talking about your problems. It could even be finding a mentor, a friend, someone who's willing to give you open and honest feedback. Because at the end of the day, we want to be the best version of ourselves. Secondly, there's developing emotional intelligence, learning how to express our feelings in a healthy way, feeling our feelings, recognizing what's coming up. Maybe I'm feeling a bit stressed today. For instance, I got up this morning, I've got a long day ahead of me. I felt anxious. I just labeled it. I was like, I feel anxious today. And within about 5 minutes, I was like, what do I feel anxious about? Well, I've got a long day ahead and, I might struggle to do this or that or this or that. And I actually just acknowledging that really made a massive difference in how I felt, and everything seemed a lot more manageable. Emotions are heavy. Emotions are really heavy. So finding a way to lift those emotions, not resist them, just accept them. Thirdly is finding a community, a supportive community of friends. You don't want friends who bring you down. You don't want friends who are a lower level than you. You don't want friends who are, unemployed, have no purpose in life. You want friends who are on a similar level to you, people who will bring you up, people who will make you feel good about yourself. Since I've moved to this town, I've made a great group of friends. They're good people. They bring you up. They care about you. And you in and of yourself, when you've done this work, you will find those communities. And the last tip is redefining what strength means. What does strength mean to you? Does it mean stiff upper lip? Does it mean brute force? Does it mean resistance? It shouldn't do, because strength in modern masculinity means authenticity, it means resilience, and it means allowing yourself to be vulnerable. There's nothing wrong with allowing yourself to be vulnerable. I tell you, if I'd never learned to be vulnerable, I would not be where I am right now. I can guarantee you that. Now, the future of masculinity, personally, I don't know what way it's going to go, but I'd like to think that us as men will be able to express our vulnerability, will be able to express our masculinity through just being more open about what we're feeling, what we're going through, developing a greater sense of resilience, but also developing a sense of individuality. That's the most important thing actually here. Individuality. There's nothing more important than being yourself. But guys, I'd really like to open the floor for this one. I'd like to encourage discussion, debate in the comments box below. What do you guys think encapsulates, what do you guys think modern masculinity is? Where do you see it moving in the future? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? I'm open to all comments. I always read every single comment and I aim to reply to every single one. Let me know in the comments box below. I'd also particularly love to hear from my American friends. Obviously, there's been a big election in America a few weeks ago with the new president coming in. So has that changed your perception on how masculinity might be perceived in the coming years? Let me know in the comments box below. I'd really love to hear your thoughts, and I'll speak to you very soon. Bye for now.